Hi, you're listening to Steve Chats Wrestling, hashtag SCW, the wrestling channel here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section, like and share the video as well. Have you ever thought about going to a WrestleMania? Do you want to know what it feels like? Do you want to know the experience you could look forward to? You are in the right place. You're going to listen to a podcast right now that's filmed in March of this year. So it's a little bit outdated, but it was the experience of going to Dallas. It was all Ricky Sickelmore was my guest on the particular podcast. We call him Mr. WrestleMania. He's been to every WrestleMania bar once. It's WrestleMania 28. So you're going to get to hear the experience of what it's like to go to a WrestleMania, what happens at a WrestleMania, the whole WrestleMania week. And personally, I think it's a fantastic listen. And I wanted to put it on there with knowing now the tickets have been released for WrestleMania 33. There's probably a lot of people out there thinking, should I or shouldn't I go? So this podcast is for you. Check it out. And there is a couple of bits maybe that are a little bit outdated in it. But of course, you can always skip through the video in places where you think that. But you get to hear everything about going to the areas of the sightseeing, what you can do with meeting the wrestlers, WrestleMania access, the Hall of Fame, the shows themselves, and also, of course, everything involved with WrestleMania full stop. So check it out right now, enjoy, and I'll pass it over to myself. It was at the time SCW, the Wrestling Podcast, Episode 2. Take it away. And you are listening to the SCW Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 2. My name's Steve. Going to be hosting for you on the Wrestling Podcast today, and I'm being joined by a very special guest indeed. In fact, I like to call him Mr. WrestleMania himself, Ricky Sickelmore. How are you doing, Ricky?
I'm very well, Steve. Thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm very good, thank you. Now, you're probably thinking, a lot of people wonder, why Mr. WrestleMania? Because surely it's HBK. But, well, let's be honest here. HBK is paid to be at WrestleMania every year. You've been to WrestleMania for quite the last few years, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been to 4 of the last 5 years. Well, this year will be my 4th year.
4th year out of the last 5. Good. Almost kind of getting a streak as well going. You could be like the new Undertaker.
I could well be. Well be.
Fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, let's kick straight into the podcast, because what we're going to be doing today, we're going to be talking about WrestleMania 32, because you are going to this year, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Yeah, so very exciting stuff indeed. So we can get your take on all the WrestleMania bit up in Dallas, what you'll be doing whilst you're in Dallas. So for people that haven't been to WrestleMania, or maybe if you are and you're listening to this, you've got just an insight of just what you might be getting up to over the next week. And we're very much looking forward to finding out myself, because I've never been to a WrestleMania. It's always been particularly a dream of mine to go. So I'm very interested in finding what you do while you're going to WrestleMania. And maybe to start off the podcast, just for the people that, of course, don't know you, Ricky, maybe you could tell us a bit about you with maybe your wrestling legacy, where it all started for you. When did you start watching?
It started at a very young age, and I was actually fortunate enough to go to SummerSlam 92 at Wembley Stadium.
Oh, wow.
It was my mum and dad who took me. I was, 9 at the time. So my mum and dad took me. We were there with, I think it was over 80,000 people at the time, seeing the British Bulldog. It was absolutely fantastic. It kind of just evolved from there, really. I then remember, again, when I was younger, entering competitions on the Evening Standard, a newspaper that's obviously in the UK, and won tickets to go and see it at the Royal Albert Hall. Then went and pretty much followed it around London in Earl's Court and in later life as well. You kind of then lose track with it. If I'm honest, I lost track with it when I was growing up, and certainly when Brock was in it the first time, I wasn't really an avid follower as much as I was now, and then got back into it by fluke. Myself and James used to regularly chat about it. James, who was on obviously last week's podcast, we used to have quite good conversations about it when we were at work together as well. And then just all of a sudden it just became almost like an obsession, and everything was to do with wrestling. And then about 5 years ago, again, got massively back into it and took the plunge into going to, it was WrestleMania, the one that was in Miami. Yeah. It was the first WrestleMania that I went to.
And that would have been the first match between The Rock and John Cena as well, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Wow, what an experience. And Miami as well, such a great place to go to. I mean, what was the experience like going to that WrestleMania?
Fantastic. I've picked WrestleManias to go to that I've been interested in seeing that part of America. So I've done Miami, I did New York. I didn't do New Orleans, ironically. A lot of people say to me, well, why didn't you do WrestleMania 30? It's a big iconic one. Because New Orleans didn't really appeal to me, so I didn't do it. But then last year did San Francisco as well.
Yeah, well, there are always some glamorous locations, as you say, and of course, it's not every place is for everyone, but of course, you're going to the place as well. You're not just going for an event, so of course, there's a lot to experience while you're there.
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, we'll talk about this year's first before we go on the backstage. Everyone's.
Hmm.
When are you going to be travelling to Dallas?
So we fly out Wednesday morning. There's a group of us going. There's actually my brother's going with me, and then two people who we met in San Francisco last year, standing outside the Levi Stadium. We've become friends with those as well. Ironically, one of them's a West Ham fan, and that's how I spotted him because he was wearing a West Ham shirt, and I made
Fantastic.
a beeline for him. So we become friends, and we've gone to quite a few wrestling events over here in the UK as well. So we went up to Manchester last year, and a few other events as well. So we're all travelling out on Wednesday.
Oh, absolutely incredible. Well, what sort of things then for someone that's going to WrestleMania, what sort of things have you got lined up while you're there in Dallas?
Well, when you buy a package when you go with WWE, and it's a really good thing that they actually lay on for you because it's a week-long celebration. A lot of people don't actually realise that it's not, WrestleMania doesn't just pitch up on a Saturday, do its thing on the Sunday, and roll out of town on the Monday. They've already started setting up the ring now, and on Monday they'll actually. It's known as WrestleMania week, so do lots of events around the whole town, and then from Thursday onwards is when actual WWE events start that you can physically buy tickets to. So they do something called WWE Access. It's essentially kind of like an exhibition, but also a meet and greet for the wrestlers. And they do that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you get tickets in with the package that you get. You can go and meet. I don't want to call it the mid carders, but it essentially is the mid carders. They're just sitting at tables, and you can go and meet those. But you have to pay a little bit more if you want to go and see the VIP people. So people like the Undertaker, Roman Reigns. I think Dean Ambrose is one of the VIPs, and Bray Wyatt this year. You have to pay a bit extra to go and see those. Then on Friday night, you get your NXT tickets thrown in with as well. So it's NXT Takeover Dallas next Friday
Amazing.
night. So you get to go and see that as well. Last year we did very similar, but they didn't give you the NXT in the package. So we did see NXT last year, but you had to buy those as separate. Whereas this year they've added them into the package. Then on Saturday night is obviously the Hall of Fame. So we've got WWE Hall of Fame. We've then separately bought tickets to go and see Jim Ross. He's doing his one-man show in the House of Blues in Dallas. So after the Hall of Fame, we're off to then go and see Jim Ross and a meet and greet as well with him there. Obviously, Sunday is then WrestleMania. It's a whole day event. I know it's billed to start at midnight over here on television, but it's a 7-hour event because there's so much going on beforehand. They arrange buses to come and pick you up from the hotels to take you there and bring you back as well. And then obviously Monday is Monday Night Raw, which is quite possibly my favourite event of the whole week that we go out there, which may sound ironic, but Raw after Mania has just gone down in history, really. It's one of the best ones.
It really has, actually, in the last sort of maybe 4 years of being someone that can watch the night after Raw. I think particularly the first one with when Dolph Ziggler cashed in his Money in the Bank to defeat Alto Barrera. That was like the real first one that stood out. And then I think the following year when Paige come onto the roster and I think Brock Lesnar made a return on one of those two Raws as well. I think it was in 2012. You look at that and say like there was some big builds and some big stories built for that night because it's essentially when everything starts again as well. I mean, we've had heel turns, we've had face turns, we've had everything happen on those sort of shows. So, I mean, as well, you get quite a lot of the international crowd that were at WrestleMania at that Raw as well. So it's kind of almost like a carnival, universal world atmosphere at that Raw as well. And you can really see the flavour and the excitement because, I mean, if you look at Raw like the last couple of weeks, you can say Pittsburgh, for example, on the 14th of March, it was very flat. There was not really a lot going on from the fans. Now, you could argue and say, well, that could be the creative are not giving enough for the crowd to get involved. But, I mean, you guys, like for yourself, Ricky, you've travelled so far, almost to a degree, you're going, well, we've travelled this far, we've enjoyed the whole week, the whole spectacle of WrestleMania, and Raw comes on, and the fans take over, don't they? You really make that show your own.
Yes, definitely. And you'll see, the beauty of it is that the WWE will find it very, very difficult to edit out any things that they don't actually like. So you'll see that there'll be quite some risky chants, certainly from the European lot that go out there. Whereas, when it comes over here, the atmosphere has started to build over here in the UK, certainly at the NXT event that I went to in December at Wembley. But they just edit it out. So if there's a chant that the WWE don't like, because they're not playing it live out anywhere, they'll just edit that part out. Whereas they don't have the opportunity at Raw after Mania.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I did see the takeover, and it was a fantastic event. And yes, the UK crowd were definitely into it. I mean, like they were very quite risky, particularly on Baron Corbin at that event. I remember a lot of F Corbin chants have been done.
Yes.
But I mean, of course, Jason Gable. I mean, he was extremely popular, and I think actually that was really the birth of American Alpha. They've really come on leaps and bounds since, and you can see that their match. In fact, we could talk about NXT just for the brief moment that you bring that up. NXT Takeover is going to be a very exciting event. Do you think that has potential to be as good as WrestleMania? You've got the debut of Shinsuke Nakamura against Sami Zayn. You've got the NXT Championship with Finn Balor versus Samoa Joe. We've mentioned the tag team titles with Asuka and Bayley in the women's title match. And of course, one of my particular things I'm looking forward to is Austin Aries. He will be taking on Baron Corbin. Do you think that's got an incredible lineup there?
I actually think it's going to be better than WrestleMania. And I know that might be a bit of a shocker, but I've been really disappointed with the WrestleMania card for this year. There's no real matches on it that grab me. We've been force-fed Roman Reigns for the past year. Nobody really wants it. There's other people out there who probably should have been given a chance, but we've been force-fed that. So I'm actually really looking forward to NXT because you're kind of like rooting for the underdogs, aren't you, really?
I think that's been the case as well with a lot of things in WWE, perhaps over the last 18 months. I remember there was a particular takeover. The name escapes me right now, but it was the one Sami Zayn won the championship. And then Kevin Owens had made his debut on the evening and then turned on Sami Zayn on that same evening. And it seemed from then, it was just before the TLC event at the same week. And there was a big buzz around WWE, and everyone kind of noticed in the locker room how there could have even been animosity from the main card because the NXT was getting such exposure to the point that NXT now gets chanted quite regularly through shows. I think NXT is going to be a superb card, and I think from top to bottom it's going to be amazing. And honestly, Rick, I'm very jealous that you're going to be involved and watching that. But you spoke about WrestleMania, the build-up there, and perhaps not being as excited. I mean, is that a shame, but the fact that obviously you're going to be flying out there, that's how you feel? Or is it the fact that when you're there, the feeling might change? I mean, for me, from a personal standpoint, I'll be honest and say, yeah, I don't think it's been the greatest build-up for WrestleMania. I think the writing has perhaps been quite poor in places, but with WWE, when it comes to the show itself, normally they pull one out of the bag. You look at last year's WrestleMania match, perhaps at times there the writing wasn't that great either, but then you looked at certain spots in the match. I mean, even in the pre-show of WrestleMania where Damien Sandow or Mizdow at the time had the potential, it looked like he could have won the Battle Royal. Of course he didn't in the end. You saw with Daniel Bryan with the ladder match and some great spots in that match, and even we're only in the second match of the actual show here, the RKO when it was Seth Rollins from the curb stomp put into RKO, then big spots like that. And as the show went on, we got little extra surprises as we go along. Do you think that WWE still could pull one out of the bag for that event?
I still think there will be surprises. We're yet to see The Rock's involvement at all. He's been incredibly quiet. For someone who said he's going to be at WrestleMania, he's been incredibly quiet. There's bound to be an appearance by Stone Cold Steve Austin. It can't be in Texas and not have Stone Cold appear. And I don't know. I've been seeing a lot of teases from John Cena. And I can't believe that WrestleMania would go ahead without some kind of appearance from John Cena as well. So there definitely will be surprises, and there needs to be. I think the problem that the WWE have got this year is that if their main event isn't going to plan, they have nobody who can change that main event. Last year, because the fans weren't behind Roman Reigns, they were more, behind Brock Lesnar, they could throw Seth Rollins in and he could cash in and win. They don't have that this year.
Do you think there's an opportunity that maybe Reigns could get screwed again? I mean, there is actually potential conflicting rumours going around that actually it may not be the main event of the card. That WWE is worried, like you say, with the fan backlash. But would you particularly be on board with, say, Reigns if maybe The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, example, come and aid in that event? Maybe Shawn Michaels as well. Maybe there's still rumours that there could be a special referee introduced into that match, although I think it's starting to get too late now to throw that in. But saying hypothetically these all-time great faces were on Reigns' side, do you think for the moment, for the evening, it could capture 100,000 people and they would get behind Reigns on the evening?
I'm still not sure. I'm not convinced that Reigns has done enough.
No, I don't either. Do you know what? It's not his fault, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the booking, I look at his title run, and I've expressed it many times before, Rick, and I'm sure I'd love to get your input on it. But TLC, we can go back to the Survivor Series, the way he was screwed out of the title. It was the right move at the time to put the belt on him, because we knew at the time, we'll have to wait another 5 months for this until Reigns finally gets the belt. He got the belt early. Great. It's over with. We can get on with our lives now and stop waiting for WWE to finally play that move in chess that they were looking into play. And then they kind of got the belt off of him straight away. I thought it was a good move. Sheamus, people hate Sheamus. Great, this is a good move. People were on side with Reigns. Then he lost the match at TLC. He took out Triple H. Now, of course, Triple H kind of ruined that by being an NXT TakeOver about a couple of days later. But he was portrayed as a Samoan badass, wasn't he? And then the next night on Raw, he won the belt back, which I think was the first of a few mistakes. Even though that Raw was a fantastic Raw to watch, from that moment onwards, he went from the badass to being a John Cena 2.0. He kind of went from being the badass to an underdog again, and people kind of like the deck was stacked against him. I've often thought that maybe a good idea at the Royal Rumble, rather than defending the belt in the Rumble match, that despite the fact that that was the first time that was ever done, he was put as number one. He was forced down fans' throats again for what would be seen going into the event for an hour. Now, he wasn't in the match now because he was taken out halfway through, like in the Royal Rumble with Steve Austin and Vince McMahon in '99. But still, the idea was placed in the fans' head that we've got Reigns for an hour here. It's going to be too long. We're watching Roman Reigns. Yeah. And then we've had the obvious where we know he's going to be at WrestleMania afterwards, which I don't think has helped him. I think that on the road to WrestleMania, they've helped him slightly because since he's come back from the nose surgery, that he's been portrayed as the badass again, they're giving him shorter stints on the mic. But I just kind of sit there and think if they stick with the badass, they could have had something working. But because they've gone with this John Cena theme of having the new Cena, I think that's really harmed him. Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, I actually think that he could have done with, to get across with his character more, he could have done with turning on Dean Ambrose as well.
I think it would have been very interesting because during that triple threat match at Fastlane, it was all about this brother's, my brother, and they didn't turn on each other really at all. There was a little hint Ambrose might turn on Reigns, but it didn't really happen either way, did it? It would have been great.
Definitely.
But it is a shame. But I mean, the rumor is that potentially the Hell in a Cell match could be the final match at WrestleMania. What's your take on that particular feud? Because at first, I absolutely loved the idea when Shane McMahon came back. It was a big buzz, and I thought the unpredictability about it was exciting. I think since the writing has been quite lackluster, and it's really a shame because I really stuck up for WWE at this and thought they've got to have a plan with this going forward. It's going to be amazing. But it feels like maybe just a little bit that it has been thrown together because The Undertaker, they didn't give him the opponent they originally wanted to. What's been your thought on the build-up of that match?
I think it could have been better. I think WWE have been severely backed into a corner this year with the amount of injuries that they've had to their top stars. So I think, overall, they probably would have, ideally, they would have picked John Cena, wouldn't they? That was who they were gunning for, John Cena to face The Undertaker.
I believe so,
but
yes.
I think that the match, is Shane McMahon the right person? Yes, 10 years ago he was throwing himself off the Titantron and things like that. He is a daredevil, but is he the right person for The Undertaker? I'm not sure. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see on Sunday. But also, I think it's interesting the stipulations that they've added to it, and I'll be interested to see where they go with it. That obviously, if Taker loses, that's his last ever WrestleMania match, and obviously, if Shane McMahon wins, then he takes over Raw.
Which would you prefer to see at this particular moment?
Shane McMahon probably taking over Raw.
Would that? I mean, the thing is as well, The Undertaker, if he did lose that match, hypothetically, he could be brought back because
yes.
Shane McMahon could just say the next night on Raw, well, okay, that was the big stipulation. Of course, sometimes it can be a bit damaging on the stipulation of the match itself, but I mean, The Undertaker could be back in the fold as normal. If Shane McMahon was to lose, there's no saying that this storyline is finished, but at the same time, again, you think the change would happen at WrestleMania if it's going to. What would be your? I mean, clearly you're going to be in attendance. I mean, it would be a huge honor, I imagine, to see The Undertaker's last WrestleMania match. Should it be that?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it will be. I think he'll be back again. But who knows? He's getting on now. He's 51 years old. He does live around that area as well, doesn't he? He does live in Texas.
He does.
So it
yes.
might be kind of a hometown goodbye if it is to be his last WrestleMania. I don't think it will be his last ever match. I think he will wrestle again probably at SummerSlam. It's bound to set it up for something for SummerSlam. And also the interesting rumours that John Cena may even get involved in the Hell in a Cell match to set up next year's WrestleMania.
Yeah, there's been multiple ideas of people that might interfere in the match. John Cena being one, the Wyatt family as well, particularly. Although they do look like they could be involved with Dean Ambrose and Brock Lesnar, which we'll come on to very shortly. As well, there's been potential rumours of the Balor Club or Bulletproof, however you want to be, the Bullet Club originally. One thing I suggested potentially on podcasting previously, and I'm not saying that this is going to be a game changer, but could you imagine like the first line of defence to help Shane McMahon, The Undertaker taking out the Mean Street Posse? Just for a small little go. How would you feel if that happened? Would you think that'd be a nice little spot?
Yeah, it'd be a nice little support. Yeah, it'd be a
Yeah.
nice surprise. Yeah.
I mean, you had the surprise last year with Sting and Triple H. You had the DX and the NWO, which of course was an amazing surprise at the time. I just think to myself, like, what sort of surprises will they have in store for that match? But I think when that match comes around, I think it's going to be potentially a show steal. I think it could be as exciting as the WrestleMania match when it was the Undertaker Triple H and you had Shawn Michaels as the referee for that match. I think there is potential to have that same excitement. I think that this one is going to be a long-winded match, and probably there's going to be one or two big spots somewhere. I can't see that they've shown Shane doing all these big spots for him not to do something at the Hell in a Cell that's going to be a little bit crazy, even if he is perhaps, like you say, he is 10 years older now than perhaps what he was then. But so we did mention Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose. This match looks like it could be a show stealer as well. Potentially it's going to be quite barbaric by the look of the last couple of episodes of Raw, teasing a barbed wire baseball bat. Yes, teasing a chainsaw, but of course we don't expect that to actually get used. Slicing of Lesnar, I can't see that happening. But what do you feel of this match coming to WrestleMania?
I like the idea of the match. I'm not sure of obviously what happened on SmackDown where you had the Wyatt family come out and start attacking him as well. You know, Bray Wyatt hasn't been booked either for WrestleMania yet. I just hope that we're going to see Ambrose versus Lesnar for a clean fight, as much as a clean fight you can have in a street fight. But I just don't, you can't have interference in too many matches, because I think it will just ruin it and people will go, oh, there's going to be another interference in this match. So I think it's going to be a great match because Dean Ambrose is a lunatic. I know he goes under the lunatic fringe, but he is a lunatic and he will put his body on the line. And I think it's going to be a really, really good match.
Yeah, I think it'd be a really good match, and I actually really agree with you, because if the Wyatt family get involved in this particular match, I personally, I've done a video on my YouTube channel, Steve Chats Wrestling. You can type that in the top of the search engine now if people haven't already, and you can go in the archives and check that out. But I think Dean Ambrose needs to win this match. Now, I didn't include this part in the video because storylines have gone on since, but if Dean Ambrose wins the match via the Wyatt family's interference taking out Lesnar, does that kind of damage what the writing they've done? Because I think they've built Dean Ambrose pretty well in the last couple of months. He is becoming the star that perhaps they want him to be. Do you think that it would perhaps damage credibility if Wyatt family did that?
Yeah, I think Dean needs to win clean, because I think ultimately they want to build Dean up to probably fight Roman, because you've got to look who else is out there that's actually going to physically challenge him.
No, it seems at the moment that perhaps maybe when Seth Rollins comes back, maybe that they could be looking, maybe, who knows, maybe WrestleMania 33 in Orlando, that could be the Shield triple threat match. It could happen because they're all getting where they're becoming the main three people on that card. That is a potential that could happen maybe going forward. And like you say, at the moment, if you look going into the summer, I mean, who is going to realistically challenge Reigns after that? I mean, there's been rumours of Braun Strowman, which now could be luckily scrapped. Let's hope. Ryback has been someone that's been potentially mentioned that could be going for Reigns after this, but it's hard to see. I mean, there's been also the teaser that Bray Wyatt could be the guy as well. So I mean, if that's the case, maybe he should attack Reigns on Raw and not be involved at that stage of WrestleMania. But we'll have to wait and see what develops. But speaking of the Wyatt family, and you say Bray Wyatt not being booked in a match, Zack Ryder is. The Intercontinental title 7-man ladder match. It's going to be a high fest big spot match, lots of ladders, potentially maybe a couple of tables thrown in there and chairs for good measure. How do you see this match turning out?
I'm disappointed that they've gone for yet another ladder match, because they did that last year. I understand they want to get as many people on the card as possible. Interesting, I was reading earlier that the only reason that Zack Ryder actually got into this match was because they were going to put Neville into it. But obviously because of his ankle injury, they then decided to give Zack Ryder the Neville spot as such. But I think it's good for Ryder because he has been loyal. He's certainly changing his character as well. But I just think the overall, it's geared up for probably Sami Zayn to be fighting Kevin Owens, isn't it? That's where we're going probably into SummerSlam for this, which is good for Sami Zayn, because after making such an impact when he came out on it was the United States Open Challenge, wasn't it, against Cena, and then put his shoulder out and quickly had to kind of disappear again. I think it's really good for him to come back and be on the main roster.
I think it's a very exciting feud, actually. I think that as well, you look at those guys from NXT coming up, and normally they kind of get paired off against the people on the roster already, but this is a feud that is continuing from NXT going in, and I agree it will go into the summer. I think actually has potential to be exciting. I remember around the year 2000, the Attitude Era, you had Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho. They had a particularly back and forth feud that went on for a good couple of years. I actually think that this actually has the blood to do that, raise the stakes of the title, and actually neither will be harmed through this feud either. And I'm very excited to see that turn out. I particularly think that you could get a Sami Zayn win at WrestleMania. One little interesting thing I'd like to bring up just very quickly, if you don't mind, Ricky. Sin Cara is in that match as well. There's been a little change of recent. If you noticed on Raw a couple of weeks ago, Kalisto and Sin Cara were dressed in different ring attire going into the match. Do you reckon there's a potential that Kalisto could retain his belt at WrestleMania? Sin Cara would lose that match, and then you could see maybe an implosion of the Lucha Dragons, or do you not really think that anyone would really care?
I think there's definitely a heel turn somewhere because I can't. One of them's changed to black attire, haven't they? I can't remember which one.
Sin Cara did.
Yes, so I think there's a heel turn there somewhere because otherwise they'd both be wearing their bright Mexican colours. I think, would anyone really be bothered? You know, they were good when they first come out because they were high flying. I mean, obviously this is the reincarnation of Sin Cara because it's the second Sin Cara we've had. I don't think anyone would really be bothered if they split up.
No, perhaps not. I mean, like you say, when they first come on the scene, particularly Kalisto was the one that was breathtaking on that Raw after WrestleMania. Some of the spots he did, I mean, the crowd went mental for it, didn't they? He was, almost something we'd never seen before. And it feels a little bit now that he's been kind of limited at times with some of the things he does in the ring, but he does do very well. And I think he is probably going to be a singles wrestler going forward after WrestleMania. But it is exciting maybe where that development possibly could go, even if it's a lower card match. Are there other matches on the WrestleMania card, particularly maybe AJ Styles that you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, AJ Styles and Chris Jericho. Jericho always seems to pull out for WrestleMania. I think he's certainly not that AJ Styles needs building up at all because obviously he's good in his own right. But a couple of years ago when Jericho kind of lost to Fandango at WrestleMania, he kind of puts people on the map, doesn't he? And I think this has been a feud that's been building for quite a few weeks. You could probably kind of see it when they were put up as a tag team that it was never really going to work, to be honest. But I think that will be a good match, but I'm quite looking forward to the Divas Champion triple threat match. I think that will be one of the best. Sasha Banks is a good wrestler, Becky Lynch is a good wrestler, and Charlotte, she's just a beast, really, isn't she? She's tall as well and quite dominant in the ring.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the rumours is that match is going to get the time it deserves. They reckon that the rumour was that it's going to be 20 minutes given to this match. And if that's true, this could possibly be the most exciting Divas match at WrestleMania since Trish Stratus and Mickie James at WrestleMania 22. I think because that was almost a show-stealing match at that particular WrestleMania because people had never really seen a long Divas match, and particularly with two Divas at that time who were very good in the ring. It seems that the Divas division had become perhaps knocked off the radar a little bit, and these Divas have brought it back. It was quite interesting on SmackDown this week to see that Sasha Banks actually fought Charlotte in a singles match, and Sasha Banks picked up the victory. Of course, there was perhaps a little bit of distraction involved in the match with Becky Lynch at ringside, but I do agree with you. I think that has got potential to be something exciting on the WrestleMania card. With regards to WrestleMania itself, then, of course, like you say, it's an all-day event. Do you like to make sure that you're there like one of the first people in the house, or are you interested just to make sure you're there by the time the pre-show matches have started, or what's normally the situation for you?
Well, what they actually do out in America, they do tailgate parties. So a lot of the fans who are in attendance will pitch up with their big SUVs and trucks, and then they'll be barbecuing out the back, and alcohol will be flowing and soft drinks and such like, and you can actually go out there and buy burgers off of people that are selling them in the car parks and things like that. But it is, the event starts at 7 o'clock, I think it is Dallas time. The coaches will be picking everybody up. I think it's 2 o'clock. It's either 2 or 3 o'clock. They'll be picking people up, so you're there well in advance. But obviously, you have got to go through security to have your bags checked and tickets checked. But it is an all-day event, so from the moment you're up, there's excitement anyway because certainly the hotel that they put you in is full of wrestling fans. So wherever you look, there's WrestleMania posters. There's even in the streets, there's WrestleMania banners. So the whole day is taken up by WrestleMania.
It does sound really exciting, and something definitely maybe one day I would love to maybe join you and be a part of. You never know.
Yes, yeah,
You've mentioned WrestleMania Access and meeting some of the mid carders earlier in the
yeah.
show. You've met two wrestlers that I've seen on your Facebook profile. Would you like to share with the people you have met?
I've met. Oh wow, who have I met? I met Daniel Bryan last year. Actually met him and he signed a photograph. That's one of the ones that I paid extra for. And then I think the year before I met Chris Jericho. So I've done Jericho as well. They're the two meet and greets that I've done. But some of the other mid carders that I've met, Zack Ryder, Fandango, Cesaro, Aksana when she was there. Wow, who else have I met? There's quite a few. AJ Styles I met, but that wasn't at Access. I've met him.
Fantastic.
Yeah, quite a few.
Very, very exciting lineup. Have you? Do you already know who you'll be seeing this time round, or is that something that you tend to realize when you're there?
Yeah, it's luck of the draw. So all of the wrestlers, if you follow them on Twitter, they'll be all tweeting out saying I'll be at Access on Thursday between 8 and 10 or whatever it is. It's literally luck of the draw. So there'll probably be five signing sessions or 5 signing tables, and Access is a 4-hour block. So 2 hours in, they then change over. So you could be queuing for example, the Dudley Boys, get right to the front of the queue. 2 hours in, they'll then change, and then it could be Epico and Primo.
Right. Okay.
So, it really is luck of the draw as to who you get. They will only announce who's going to be there once they're actually there. So you don't even know. So, at zone number 1, it might be the Dudley Boys, and then you might want to go and meet Paige thinking she's at zone 1, but she then turns up at zone 4. So they don't even announce where people are going to be. And that way they don't get too many people queuing for that one person.
I suppose it is kind of a good way to go around it, but then it comes to, with the luck of the draw, like you say, with the people you have met, that actually you've met some incredible talents, and maybe some people that a lot of people would be envious of meeting. I mean, particularly Daniel Bryan, Chris Jericho, and Cesaro. I'm sure would be on many people's wish list if they would go to WrestleMania this year to Access. So no, it sounds very. Do you get to see other things other than meeting fans at Access? I mean, I've seen things shown on WWE programming that they have a big Andre the Giant and other pieces of bobs. But what sort of things can you look forward to at Access?
So in Access, the other things they do, they have a physical ring set up and they do matches throughout the day. So you'll get the NXT talent. A couple of years ago, I saw Brodus Clay actually fighting there as well. Last year was Neville was fighting at Access as well. So they will film NXT matches in the actual Access arena itself. So the fully functioning ring, which they'll then also do other things. So they'll do Q&A sessions. So a couple of years ago, Big Show was in the ring doing a Q&A session. Where fans can just shout out questions to him and he'll answer them. Obviously, there's quite a few hundred people there, so it's pretty difficult to get your questions across to them. But they'll constantly have things like that in the ring. Also, they'll have all the memorabilia. So Triple H's chair throne thing that he's had a couple of years ago, that will be up. You'll have all of the old title belts. You'll have Macho Man's jackets, Ric Flair's jackets. There's a whole like a miniature Hall of Fame. So in there you've got all the memorabilia from things. One year I went there and it was Vince McMahon's, the limousine that was famously blown up.
Yes, yeah, I remember that.
That was there. So they'd brought that in to put that in there. I've actually not seen any maps of what's in it this year. Normally they announce what's going to be in it. When it was in a couple of years ago when it was in New York, I think they actually had Paul Bearer was actually in the Undertaker's boneyard. So you can actually go and meet Paul Bearer when he was still with us. Obviously, he's sadly no longer with us, but you could go and meet him. So they try and mix it up every year. But also in there, they have a huge superstore where I spend hundreds of pounds.
Nice. No, it sounds very exciting. I mean, one thing I've always said is that if I did WrestleMania, I would love to go to Access. It looks like it's something superb. I remember one year seeing something on the TV that actually someone got to call a Royal Rumble match with Michael Cole. He was actually they got to have a chance of being the commentator, which always was something growing up that I found would be quite interesting to do. I would have loved to have been on like a commentary team. I probably would have sounded like Byron Saxton, but still would have been fun to try. It would have been very exciting. You mentioned the Hall of Fame a moment ago. What's your take on the Hall of Fame induction ceremony this year?
Well, from last year's Hall of Fame, it went on far too long. And I remember them saying, next year we're not going to have as many inductees. We're going to keep it nice and short because, I think it went on for like 4.5 hours in the end.
Wow.
And as a fan, when you're sitting there watching it, there's only so much you can sit through with people saying essentially the same thing. I want to thank X, Y, and Z. And this year, they just keep adding and adding to it. So they've really not cut it back at all. I think it's good. The people are being inducted. They deserve to be inducted. I think it's odd that New Day are inducting the Freebirds. I think that's a bit odd, personally, because they wouldn't know them. But ultimately, Sting's the biggie, isn't he?
Yes, he's going to be. I think the reason the New Day are the ones doing it because they're kind of got the Freebird rule going on. It seems to be that match at WrestleMania, the handicap match, could be kind of like a Freebird kind of match going forward. I think it's like a tribute for them, but I do agree with you. It's nicer when it's kind of a bit more personal, a bit more at home with the people that are inducting. I mean, I found really fascinating Jake the Snake's induction with DDP and explaining how DDP actually helped his life and stuff like that. Like stuff that you don't realise outside the ring. It's a nice personal touch to watch that. Of course, with the Ultimate Warrior as well, very emotional because that was kind of one of the last things we ever really saw with the Warrior before his sad time of passing. But no, I think that the Hall of Fame is definitely a special occasion. I didn't realise it could go as long as 4.5 hours. Is it a surprise to you that there's not really? I don't think a celebrity wing has been announced yet. And has there been a Connor inductee yet? I don't think there has been. Is there?
Neither of those. There were rumours that they were going to induct Snoop Dogg into the Celebrity Hall of Fame because, of course, he's Sasha Banks' cousin, isn't he? So there were rumours that was going to happen, but I think they've probably got too many already, so that's probably why they've not done that this year.
Yeah, maybe so. Well, I mean, with WrestleMania, it does sound extremely exciting. Is there any more that you can tell us about WrestleMania week that maybe we don't know already or we haven't discussed?
You've got to do it. It's fantastic. I remember last year, I'll share a little story with you. Me and my brother were walking just around it was in San Jose. So although it was billed as San Francisco, it wasn't actually San Francisco. It was in San Jose, which is just outside San Francisco. And we were just walking down this street where the trams were going, not far from our hotel, really. And I just glanced across to the right-hand side, and standing outside the hotel was Hornswoggle, who I happened to then go and grab a picture of. And then we walked around the back, and we actually managed to stumble across the hotel where all of the wrestlers were actually staying, and they were quite happy to come out and sign things for people. Mark Carano was there, who's the guy, for those of you who watch Total Divas and things like that. He's actually one of the head talent writers. He was outside and he was signing for people and having photographs for people. So it's little things like that, stumbling across wrestlers whilst you're walking about. One of the two guys that I went with a couple of years ago when they were in New Orleans went into a bar, stumbled across Ric Flair.
Wow.
So it's just they're just normal people who are there. Yes, they're doing a job, but they also have their downtime as well. So you can stumble across wrestlers that where else would you experience that? You wouldn't.
No, of course not, and it does sound a fascinating experience. And of course, like we say, we've talked about Dallas, Texas. You've been to other WrestleManias as well. When you've gone to these locations, do you get to do any sightseeing, or is it mainly all about the WrestleMania? Because it sounds like a lot there is packaged in with the wrestling side of things. Do you get to see the towns as well?
Yeah, we fit in as much as possible. So we tend to go out there. All the events start on the Thursday, but we go out there a day earlier. So we fly out on the Wednesday, so we're there ready for Wednesday night. And then we typically pack as much in around. Thankfully, most of the events are in the evening, so you've got pretty much all of the daytime for yourself. A couple of the access sessions are early morning. It's really only the Sunday where your whole day is taken up because of WrestleMania. But certainly, when we went to New York, fitted in lots there, Madison Square Garden. We even went to a basketball game when we were in New York as well. So we did that. And then, no, sorry, we didn't do that in New York. We did that last year. We flew on to Los Angeles. So we did an LA Lakers game whilst we were there. But there's plenty of time, plenty of opportunity. And that's why really we only go to places that kind of have things to do. Granted, there's not a huge amount of things to do in Dallas. You can go down and have a look at where Dallas was filmed, and you can see where JFK was shot. I think they're one of the two things that you can actually do in Dallas.
It does sound quite exciting with the things that you can do, and of course, but being in Texas as well, it's one of the biggest states as well in America, and it should be a very exciting place to be. We'll talk about the other WrestleManias than you've been to. Do you have a particular favourite one you've been to, or particularly favourite matches you've seen?
Miami was probably my favourite one, just probably because it was my first. So that was the experience, and I enjoyed that. But probably my favourite match has got to be CM Punk versus Taker from the WrestleMania that was in New York.
Lovely, yeah. Would be it was a great match to watch, and I think that was a show stealer at WrestleMania 29.
Yeah.
It was very good. Your thoughts on WrestleMania then? Would you like to see a WrestleMania in the United Kingdom? Because Boris Johnson actually sent a tweet out not long ago now, and actually saying that he would be quite happy for WrestleMania to be in the United Kingdom. Now, of course, we're probably a way off. I mean, like you say, we're quite vocal, and maybe sometimes we might say things that maybe WWE doesn't like. But then at the same time, we do get the tours that come with Raw, and we're slowly building. We're getting network specials. We've got one coming for us with the main roster in September. Do you think that this could lead to a pay-per-view, and potentially could we maybe one day get a WrestleMania?
I think that's what the NXT event was in December of last year. They were testing to see probably the buy rate on the network or the view rate on the network. I think it would be good to get a WrestleMania. I'd be a little bit disappointed because, let's be honest, we never have the great weather over here, do we? Yes, it would be held at the Wembley Stadium, but we don't get fantastic weather like you get at San Jose and places like that. We could definitely pack the stadium out. There's no doubt that we'd pack it out. But I think WWE's concern is that they wouldn't get the buy rate in America because obviously they're always, everything they do is pretty much set by American times. We have to get up early in the morning to watch the pay-per-views because they won't change them for us. So I think that would be their main concern, would be that their biggest pay-per-view of the year would be on, 2 o'clock in the afternoon over in America.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that is a shame, really.
The other thing to consider is that if they did put it at Wembley Stadium, where else do they hold all of the other events? So where would they put Access? Obviously, Monday Night Raw would be at the O2. There's no doubt about that. But where else? There's no, convention centres. Where do we put it? It would be so disjointed and probably really expensive as well because they typically lay on travel. So when you go to America, certainly when it was in New York, they laid on free travel. So they gave you like a travel card essentially so that you could get across to New Jersey. That would be quite expensive because traveling on the London Underground is not cheap. So I think that's all things that WWE have taken into account, and the time difference. The time difference, as I said before, is huge for them, and certainly could affect their viewer rate.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, of course, for the United States, for things to be starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the States, would it get as much home of people watching? It's kind of like the home of wrestling, isn't it? Where we're kind of in Europe and stuff. Of course, we have to make the sacrifice for them though, for a lot of the time. So it would be nice if it was balanced one time. But I mean, maybe they could start with a SummerSlam again. I mean, you mentioned about SummerSlam '92, and for me, I think it's still one of the most iconic pay-per-views of all time. It would be great to see if it could happen one day. But we'll have to see if it does happen at all. But I'm sure if anything ever gets broke with a WrestleMania like that, then maybe we can give and break that to you here first. Speaking of WrestleManias, then, what's your favorite? Have you got a favorite WrestleMania that you've maybe watched on the TV at home?
They've all got good bits. I remember the WrestleMania that was from Caesar's Palace, and I remember the Hulk Hogan and Yokozuna match from that. That was a good one. To be fair, the Stone when we were in the Stone Cold and Rock matches at WrestleMania, they were always great WrestleMania matches. I think it's difficult for me to pick out a favorite WrestleMania as such.
I can understand it because all of them have, like you say, great individual moments.
Yeah.
I mean, you could even look with WrestleMania 30, the moment when the streak got broken. It was an iconic moment on that event, and with Daniel Bryan winning the title, it's arguably a great WrestleMania moment. With The Rock and John Cena at WrestleMania 28, amazing. They had the rematch at 29 and CM Punk with the Taker, like you mentioned. There's so many great WrestleMania moments. I think for me, if I had to pick, I really enjoyed WrestleMania 17. That was the second time that we got Austin and The Rock, and that was ultimately where Austin turned heel in the main event when he kind of sided with Vince McMahon because he said he would do anything to win that match. I think that the whole card from top to bottom was incredible, and it almost was the closing of that chapter of the Attitude Era when we started moving towards the Ruthless Aggression and the Invasion era as well, if you remember the Invasion as well. But yeah, there were some really good times. Do you have a least favourite WrestleMania match? I mean, of course, we can't say WrestleMania itself, but maybe something you looked at the time. Maybe you've seen it live, or maybe you saw it on the TV and went, I don't know what that's all about. Why is this on a WrestleMania?
No, I don't think there is, to be honest.
No, you can't think.
There's not one that springs to mind that I think, oh, why is that on there?
No.
There's not one that instantly springs to mind.
No, I mean, I think for me, if I had to pick one, maybe just for the match itself and the build-up was incredible, but the match itself was booked far too long. I was Michael Cole versus Jerry Lawler, and I believe that was at WrestleMania 27. Please, someone correct me if I've got that wrong, but they had like I think it was about a 25-minute match for two commentators. Basically, Jerry Lawler, his WrestleMania moment, a match he as well didn't even win. He got disqualified in the match. Which for me, I just looked at him and thought that felt like a bit of perhaps a waste. I was looking, going, I don't know. I think perhaps as well, Bret Hart and Vince McMahon, when that match took as well, maybe would have been better if they'd have done maybe. Had a superstar representing them rather than the match itself. Although once again, the build-up for that was quite exciting as well. We were talking off air before, saying about particular wrestlers that could be favourites at the moment. A lot of the injuries have taken their toll on WWE, and my take on it for you is maybe which superstars you are more excited to see going forward in 2016 rather than a favourite.
I think once Finn Balor gets called up to the main roster, I think he'll be huge.
I do agree.
I don't know when or if he will get called up, though. I'd like to think it'll be inevitable, but the moment he does, you've then got to look at who's the next big star in NXT. It may well be Austin Aries. We don't know. Obviously, Samoa Joe is down in NXT as well. These are all people that are kind of rumored to be joining the main roster soon. They certainly need to give it some new blood, because you're going to have quite a few probably retirements this year. Mark Henry's not going to go on much longer. Big Show probably won't go on much longer. Kane probably can't go on much longer. So you need people that are, they need to start building people now for next year's WrestleMania. But I think Finn Balor for me is the one to watch for this year.
I think so as well. I actually look at him in NXT and I look at the makeup, like when he's the demon Balor, and even when he's the regular Balor, he's just he like you say, he carries that company. And I think personally going forward, especially if he comes in with the stable of Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, I think that there is something there that they can really make of this stable, and I can see them a potential. I've said before, I think Balor could main event at WrestleMania. I think it could happen. I think we've covered a lot of what we were going to cover on this particular podcast, but Ricky, I would like to ask if maybe you'd like to come on the show in future, maybe with a WrestleMania, share the experience that you had in Dallas, maybe maybe even a future, maybe come on the shows and talk about Raw as well would be great if you'd like to. I have one final question for you before we do close up the show today. Orlando, Florida is the destination for next year. Have you already got one eye on Orlando?
Yes, but my bank balance hasn't.
Right, okay. Well, if there is there potentially an extra seat on the plane next to you?
Of course there is.
There is. That's
more the merrier.
That's always good news to know from me, and I will bring my West Ham shirt as well if that helps. But thank you very much for coming on the show, Rick. It's been great to have you on. And
thanks for having me.
Just to say, for anybody that would like to be in touch with the podcast and also like to keep up with SCW, you can go now onto Facebook at the top of the search engine. You can type in the SCW Wrestling Podcast. Hit the like button now. You can find this podcast as well as previous ones. We had one on Thursday with James the Animal Steel, who was involved, and we'll have one as well bidding up to WrestleMania next week, the final Raw before WrestleMania, and of course we'll have a results review show as well. We'll get Ricky back on as well in future to discuss his WrestleMania times. You can follow me as well on YouTube with Steve Chats Wrestling, SCW. Just type that in now. You can keep up to date with all the latest news, rumours and views going on right now heading into WrestleMania. And of course, if you like Twitter as well, at SChat Wrestling, you can keep up to date with me on there as well. But that's all we've got time for me, Steve. You've been listening to Mr. WrestleMania himself, Ricky Sickelmore. Thank you very much for listening to the SCW Wrestling Podcast. We'll see you next time.